So I thought if that old guy that had all those problems with everybody else in the town he's in, if he moved here, he'd probably have problems with people here too. But the guy that had that great attitude and loved his town, well, he's probably going to come here and love this town too. Because you see, wherever you go, you take yourself. And the place you end up is going to be a lot like the place you used to be. From New Life Ministries, this is Going Deeper with Stephen Arterburn. I'm Stephen Arterburn. And Going Deeper is all about taking the tough issues, the hard issues of life, looking a little bit deeper inside so that we can gain some insight into our lives. Hi, Steve Arterburn here. Thanks for joining me for Going Deeper. We're in a series, I did the intro last week, a series about the problems with love. Now, love has a lot of problems, but I'm just dealing with five different approaches whenever love is a problem. Now, all of us, even the hardest old crusty person, all of us certainly need love, and way down deep inside, we want love, but sometimes we become so broken, we don't know of the need, and we lose the desire. But God created us in His own image, and God is love. So if we're going to have a great life, love needs to be part of it. That love might be expressed in a Bible study, a recovery group, in a marriage, dating, wherever. But if there's no love there, boy, the Bible's really specific. If you don't have love, forget about it. It is the number one thing, since God is love. Now, there are 5 different reasons that I'm going to talk about that you may have a problem. And here's number 1, and this is a tough one. The problem could be that there's no problem until you create one. You see, sometimes people are used to problems. They're not really comfortable with everything being great. Sometimes because the better they are, the closer someone might come. And that might feel a little bit uncomfortable. So what do? Well, they create a problem. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes not. Sometimes they say this is part of my personality. Sometimes it's just the way they are because they saw this is the way that Dad was. There was an old grandfather with his little granddaughter sitting out by the country store, out in these metal chairs, that kind of creak and go back and forth. And a man drove up, and he got out, he said hello to the little girl, and he looked at the grandfather and said, "I am considering moving to this town." "What kind of town is this?" Granddad said, "Well, what kind of town do you live in?" "Well, people are really mean there. They're kind of distant. When they get together, they're not really friendly. And they seem to have a lot of grudges from times way past. They just don't get over things. I mean, it's not really very pleasant. You can have neighbors that you've lived next to and maybe you've never met them. Years go by. So it's not very pleasant, so I'm looking for another place." He said, "Well, buddy, this town, it's a lot like that. I wouldn't recommend it." Got back in the car and off he went. I bet it wasn't 10 minutes later that a guy came walking down the street. And he sees the old man and the little granddaughter, says hello to her, and then says the most amazing thing to the granddad. He says, "Sir, I am walking the streets of this town, and I'm asking people what this town is like. Could you tell me what it's like?" The granddad said, "Well, tell me about the town you live in." He said, "Oh, I live in a great town. People are wonderful. We all get together regularly. Our neighbors are close. We have cookouts all the time. And people are ready to help each other at the drop of a hat." grandfather looked at the guy and said, "You know what? That's what this town is like." And the guy said, "Great, because I sure want to live here." And they said their goodbyes. Well, of course, the granddaughter looks up at Granddad and says, "Granddad, did you lie? You told one man it was horrible, and you told the other man it was great." Granddad said to the little girl, "Well, honey, it would be horrible for that first man, because a town is pretty much what you make it out to be, how you relate to other people. So I thought if that old guy that had all those problems with everybody else in the town he's in, if he moved here, he'd probably have problems with people here too. But the guy that had that great attitude and loved his town, well, he's probably going to come here and love this town too. Because you see, wherever you go, you take yourself, and the place you end up is going to be a lot like the place you used to be." So sometimes we're the problem, or we create the problem. Listen to this verse right out of James 4:1-3. "What's causing the quarrels and fights among you? Don't they come from the evil desires at war within you? You want what you don't have, so you scheme and you kill to get it. You're jealous of what others have, but you can't get it, so you fight and you wage war to take it away from them. Yet you don't have what you want because you don't ask God for it. And even when you ask, you don't get it because your motives are all wrong. You want only what will give you pleasure." So if that's who we are, there's not going to be a lot of great love going on there. It's just going to be problem after problem if we're all focused on things and stuff that are anything but good for us. So maybe the problem is that there's no problem until you create the problem, because you're used to problems, or you need problems to feel like you're part of something. I would just suggest that whatever it is you're involved with, if you find yourself always creating the problem, a little work on what it was like with Mom and Dad might free you to no longer be the problem that you create. So next time, we're going to talk about problem number 2 in these problems with love. And it's not about you creating the problem. I hope you'll join me then. In the meantime, I hope that maybe you'll take a second look at some of the ways that you interact with folks and make sure this week you're not going to be the problem that creates the problem with love. So until next time, finally until next time, thanks for joining me for Going Deeper. Thank you for joining me for Going Deeper. I hope something I've said may have helped just a little bit. If you have a question you'd like me to answer or comment, just email me at stevesocial@newlife.com. I'll see you next time.
If you want to support Going Deeper with Stephen Arterburn, be sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. And if you know someone who would benefit from this episode, be sure to share it with them. See you on the next Going Deeper with Stephen Arterburn from New Life Ministries.